Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to the Straight Outta Prison podcast. My name is James K. Jones, and this is my story.
And this is Haley Jones, and this is his story that has now become a part of my story.
We got a story, girl. We married now.
We are definitely married. The two have begun to become one.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are recapping season 4.
It's the recap to Ignition.
Is that a song?
Yeah, R. Kelly.
That's not the words.
It's the remix to Ignition, hot and fresh out of my
James
kitchen.
hasn't had a lot of sleep, so...
I haven't. It's been a week.
Yeah.
Or a month, or a day, or a year, or something.
Or a lifetime, as you've been listening to his story.
Yeah.
All right, so where do we start in the beginning of season 4?
Season 4 was... We're still telling my story. We didn't get into your story until like episode 4.
Yeah.
Where we talked about you moving to Alabama from Sweet Home Sweden.
Sweden, yes.
Over yonder with Lars and Jan and Gluten Morgan.
Yes, and all the meatballs and boiled potatoes.
Yeah, and the very small apartments.
Anyway, so yes, that was season 4, but where did we begin season 4?
We started season 4. It was, the episode was titled Heartbreak. Mm-hmm. It was, I was in a relationship with Shauna. I thought we were going to get married.
But you didn't.
Things didn't work out.
Yep.
She cheated on me.
Yep.
And broke my heart, basically. So that was that episode.
Well, you're just full of life, aren't you, right now?
Well, I mean, some of that stuff's hard to remember. I mean, for the purpose of the podcast, I think there's been like healing and walking through that. But at the same time...
You still feel like you needed healing from that breakup?
Yeah, that jaded me. Like, I've never been crushed.
Like now? It still jades you?
No, but when you're... No, now I'm thankful. Like, It's like a... What was I thinking? Thank you, Jesus. But at the time, it was... everybody's been rejected. Everybody's been hurt.
Yeah.
Every man has had a girl that didn't come through and do the things that he thought she was going to do. But no, she broke my heart. Like, she totally crushed me.
Yeah.
Like, crushed me.
I think most people honestly know, man or woman, knows how that feels. I mean, not all, but... a lot know how that feels.
Well, even as I was going through that process, I was like, this is not me. Like, this is not what I do. This is not, but I couldn't help it.
I think because you were probably out of control of your emotions as far as like your feelings. And I mean, the emotions and falling in love is such a crazy thing. I think that when you do fall hard, so to speak, like you do feel like you lose control of, you just...
But I wanted to lose control. I thought that was what you're supposed to do.
Right.
I thought that was like the thing. Mm-hmm. That's what the movies say. I mean, that's what people say.
Yeah.
You find your person, you find your one. And just all the stuff that I walked through with her, the wasted energy, wasted time, wasted money, wasted things.
Here's what I know about you, though. And I still can kind of find this irritating, honestly, is that when you say wasted time, wasted money, wasted things, like even today, even this week, you're like, I cannot stand doing something and then like learning or I guess realizing that it was a waste of my time to do it. But I think it's really just about a perspective change, like the whole Kairos. Even I feel like up to recently in our marriage, up to like a year or two ago, and I understand this, I'm not judging, but like just the whole Kairos thing, you're like, it was just a waste, like, but why? And I just think like, well, that's how we met. In the last couple of years, I feel like you've come around to that. And it's just like, you kind of like see the value in, it does feel like a waste of time. That was a massive like loss, like in every way. I get that. But,
there was a lot of wasted energy.
But I feel like life is full of, you can either look at it as wasted energy or lessons learned that maybe got you from where you were to where you actually want to be or are going.
Well, those are good, like things to put on Instagram memes or to like put on a t-shirt or on your refrigerator. But when you're walking through something painful, it's not as simple. Like you have to process those things out.
I understand that because I've had them too. You're not the only one. So, I get that.
No, I know, but it's like people the advice is, if God closes the door, opens a window, you got to climb through that.
See, I didn't say all that.
Where'd you get that from?
I did not say that. You said that, not me, just so you know.
That's what I'm saying. When you go through something painful, it takes time to process it.
Yeah, for sure.
And those were painful years.
Mm-hmm.
And I have processed it. Now I'm thankful.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think I'm still a little jaded.
Really?
By some of that stuff.
See, I can almost this is real talk right now, but I can almost be like, you're jaded by a relationship with a woman and now you're married with kids. It's and you're still jaded by that?
No. Not just that. The whole package. Like her dad being my pastor, her brother-in-law working for me, her mom working for me all those years.
Well, it's like you're not totally free from it yet or something. Because when you say you're still jaded, to me, how I interpret that is not what you said, but this is how I interpret that, is that you're not, there's still some things you're still kind of, I don't know, lamenting, you're not free, which is not a bad thing. It's just.
Well, I'm not lamenting.
Well, jaded is the word you used.
Jaded, yeah.
We should look up the word jaded, what that means, actually.
It just means that you've been, poisoned almost.
Well, to me, that means, you're still carrying it a little bit. Do you think that's true?
Are you Dr. Phil right now? Are you Haley?
Maybe. Dr. Haley.
I don't know. I just, those things take time to process.
Yeah.
And for the most part, I feel like I've already processed all that and I'm over it. But I've honestly, in the last 2 or 3 episodes, when I listen to them,
mm-hmm.
I've been feeling, I don't know, guilty, kind of bad. Just the way that I talk about Steve and Jeremy specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like it. I'm questioning myself. Am I talking the way I'm talking on this podcast to try to get back at them or something? And
So you've asked yourself that question?
Yeah. No, I've asked Jesus. This, I feel, but at the same time, it's I'm telling the story of where I was during the time, the things I walked through, the way I was thinking, and I'm putting myself back in that.
Yeah.
And that was the way I felt. That was the true story.
Yeah.
So why would I keep it real with everything else and not keep it real with that?
I think that's great. I mean, and I think to keep that perspective for people, I mean, for us that's telling our story, and for others that are listening to our story, and the fact that just like what you said, that's what you were feeling at the time, right, wrong, or indifferent or whatever, that's where you were.
Yeah.
And
I'm trying to tell a story from my perspective.
Right. And I guess use it as I'm talking to us too, as an opportunity to realize, other people too, when they're talking about how they're feeling and we want to say I might be oh, they're being too critical, or I don't like how they're judging, or whatever I don't like about what they're saying. To realize they're in a process too. Yeah. And that's where they're at with it.
And I've come to this, I guess, it's given me a little bit of peace. Mm-hmm. Is that if any of them were telling their story on a podcast, they probably have problems with me.
Yeah.
And they'd probably say that.
Right.
And that would be their perspective.
Right.
It's kind of like in the Gospels in the Bible, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. There's been a lot of critics that say, well, Matthew said this and Mark said that and John this and Luke. Mm-hmm. But they all had a different perspective. They all were seeing the same things, but they had a different lens, a different life experiences, things that they struggle with, and they saw it differently. Mm-hmm. The story was the same, but it was the way they saw it.
Different, details they noticed.
Yeah.
So, it all boils down to me, and this is something a phrase we've used a lot, but just for me, us doing this has made me more aware of the whole seek first to understand and then be understood.
Yeah.
So, you never know what somebody's walking through and how they're dealing and their perspective on it. And it's before you make a judgment or try to push advice or whatever, to seek first to understand where they're at and how they're feeling before trying to make myself understood.
Yeah, that's one of the Covey's laws of
goodness. I don't know what you're going to say.
What was it?
Power?
Laws of success. I can't remember.
Laws of success, yeah.
Stephen Covey, he wrote the laws of the laws of something.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I read the book, but one of them was seek first not to be understood, but to understand. Mm-hmm. And honestly, in any situation I've ever been in my life where I'm struggling, when I do that, it makes a difference.
Yeah.
But for the way that we've been telling the story. It's just I'm trying to tell my perspective, where I was, how I was processing, and all things.
Yeah.
But
so you can release yourself of that guilt.
No, but I have been struggling. I think it was specifically the last 2 or 3 episodes that our wedding one, like talking about Steve, like singing at our wedding and making fun of that and stuff. Like, I don't know. I feel guilty. I feel bad about that.
I can see that. But I mean, I feel like that's more about, at least for me, that's my vantage point on that. Like, I was.
Not the singing.
Some people might love for him to sing at their wedding. Just not me. Like, I didn't know that was going to be happening. You know what I mean? And like, that's not my style.
Wait,
like,
did you even know he was out there singing?
I heard him and I was like, is he singing right now?
I didn't know you heard.
I was behind the doors. I was like, what is happening out there? This was not part of the agenda that I was aware of.
All right. Well, we already did that episode.
Okay. Anyway. Okay. So moving on, like, let's hit some other main points.
Well, let's talk about like some comments that we've gotten. So I think, have you got any that you want to talk about?
Well, I've gotten some, like, just in regards to me and my story, just not knowing, especially in my season of life now. Like, we've been married, 8 years, right? Mm-hmm. And we have 3 kids, and we're like in the thick of all of that. And so we have a lot of friends that are in the same season that we've met since we've been married. Yeah. And become very close to. And that they don't know all the details of my not past life, but, my earlier life, so to speak. And actually a friend of mine texted me, a close friend of mine texted me and was just like, oh, I have this friend, whatever her name was. I don't even remember. And, cause I didn't know her. And she was just like, oh, she listens to y'all's podcast and she's like a huge fan. And she said she just feels like she knows both of you so well. And I started thinking about that. No, but I told my friend, I said, it is kind of weird because even with the friends that I'm closest to now, how often do you sit down and like divulge all the details in the story, like line by line, and how I was feeling, and I thought like,
and the deep details.
Sometime I might be allergic to that, but I was like, you know what? They do actually know me pretty well because I'm pretty honest. I mean, you are too, about like what happened and how I was feeling and just like the emotions. And that is kind of weird to think that someone I've never met before actually knows me pretty well. Like, because in that way, because it's just a very honest conversation. And I told, Anna was my friend. I told her, I was like, I think there's some of these things like, I've never like told you, we just don't sit down and have these conversations. And I don't. So that was kind of a crazy thing because, this season we get to talking about me and my story a little bit. So that came out in that. So I imagine that's how you felt this whole time,
Well, I can't tell you how many people have reached out to me, and just told me their whole story, like the details, things that they probably wouldn't tell anybody else. And it's like, it kind of caught me off guard at first, but then it was like, I came to a place of understanding, like they want to be vulnerable with me because they feel like they can, because I've been vulnerable with them, even though I haven't like specifically been vulnerable with them, but just because they're listening to podcasts. Right. And there's I love that part of it. Like, I love being able to connect with people who are going through things and have been through similar situations that I have, and just being able, them feeling like that I'm a safe like landing place for them to be able to talk and just get it out. And it's not always like I got some kind of uber wise advice to give to them. Sometimes for humans, it's just to get it out. Like, you find something, you find an outlet, you can talk to someone, you get it out, and then it's like you get it off you.
Well, and you do have,
and I love that.
You do have experience. You say, like, it's not like I have some wisdom, but I think it's funny, a conversation that I just had with Lula tonight. Yeah. I don't know how, I told Royal, like, you are so smart. And she said,
So Lula's our daughter and Royal's our son.
Right. So I told Royal about some. I was like, you are so smart. And then Lula piped up and was like, well, I'm smart too. And then he walked around and she was like, and actually I'm probably smarter because I'm older and I'm in 2nd grade. And I was like, I was thinking about, like, off the cuff. I was like, you know what? I said, when I'm referring to smart, I'm referring to like how you think and how you like process things. I said, so I think both of you are very smart. Absolutely. I said, but it is true that you, talking to Lula, have more experiences and more things that you've learned because you've been around. And I think that's the same for you.
Because you've been around.
Well, you've been around longer.
A whole
and
2.5 years.
Well, I mean, but I'm connecting that to you and what you said. Like, I don't have any wives, but I do think you have a lot of experiences and a lot of things that you've learned that you're able to speak to.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, when you're vulnerable and open and you share, like, the hard stuff, it gives an opening for other people to share their hard stuff. And I may be able to give advice. I mean, I give advice to a lot of people. I'm not saying I can't. But even if I don't, there's something healing in just being able to get it out.
Mm-hmm.
Like finding somebody that you can talk to just get it out.
Yeah.
And I love that element of us doing this podcast because I can't even count. I mean, I have neighbors that have told me their life story, the gory details. And I'm like, whoa.
It's only the second time we've met.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, I didn't, okay then.
Which is particularly true for you because you're not exactly a warm and fuzzy personality. Like,
No,
you're not
but
one that people like gravitate, like, oh, I feel so safe and comfortable until they listen to this podcast. And
then they feel like they can tell, because
Yeah.
I've said all the things, like what, I mean,
Right.
I ain't never killed nobody, but I did everything else.
Right.
So, but that's almost like a gift for somebody, not my gift, but like a gift for somebody to feel like they can come clean with you.
Yeah.
And I don't take that for granted. I think that's really neat. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful
neat.
thing. And, there's been 10, 12, 15 people that have done that. And I feel like we've gotten to a place where we've developed a relationship and then they found a level of healing.
Yeah.
And to me, that is the greatest gift of all. Like, to be able to just be somebody that can help people. So that's good stuff.
Well, and I feel like I need to know someone that can help people. You said that. But I'm not tooting our horns at all, but I feel like we're helping people by just being honest and being who we are, which is what anybody and everybody could do. Maybe not on a podcast, but
And
just like
do.
to be honest, and to be, because, and you never know, like you being honest and getting out there, even with one person, how that could help someone else, like feel comfortable to then. So, I mean, it's definitely a domino effect once it starts.
I like it. I mean, that element of it I love.
Yeah.
But then there's also people that piss off. I mean, specifically, like there's a lot of people in my family that do not like what we're doing here. My mom, but top one, she's the chief hater. Even though
Not
she's
a hater.
Well, she won't listen to it. She won't. She don't want anything to do with it. She pretends like we're not doing it.
She does pretend like we're not doing it. It's kind of funny.
But she follows all the social media.
Right.
And she's like, what y'all talk about this week? I saw y'all talking about...
Well, actually, she reads it, and then she thinks she's listened to the whole thing, which is like, that's just a snippet. And then she has, commentary and questions. And
But, she's also one of our patrons, so she gets all the inside.
She doesn't get all that. She doesn't listen to all that.
No, but I put the app on her phone like she could.
Who knows?
Anytime she wanted to.
Yeah.
But, I've had to be careful with people in my family. We had a wedding this year.
Oh my gosh.
That we went to. We don't need to unpack all that. If listening for real rough, you want to listen to all that.
Can we tell the story about...
No, we're recapping season 4.
Okay.
But there were... Every time I see somebody in my family, they say, we've been listening to your podcast. And I'm like, well, are you mad at me? I need to know where you are. Which side of are you
James
mad
is like
or not
flipping
mad?
through his like episode files. Like, what did I say?
You mad or not mad? I mean, because I'm not really going into it thinking... I'm going to talk about somebody or make somebody angry, but I have done that, and I didn't. It's not intentional on my part,
right? But you actually do that in real life too.
What do you mean?
Take a podcast, I can tell you.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, just like you sometimes can take this like a little bit of a like harsh, stubborn stance on like I'm going to say what I want to say. Like I'm just going to like.
No, that's only when people try to silence me.
Okay.
If you try to silence me or tell me I can't say something, then I'm going to be double loud.
All I'm saying is that it hasn't taken a podcast for you to make people mad.
This is true. All right. I feel like we are doing an episode of the For Real Real.
Well, it's a recap. This is the For Real Real.
All right. So
the recap.
Recap was season
4.
So that's 2012 to 2013. So let's rewind it. Or 2008 to 2013.
Okay, so heartbreak, that you're still hanging on to some of it.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to argue with me on that. And
you mean now? I'm not hanging on to anything now.
See, that's what I was looking for, people. I pushed a button.
No, I'm not.
I was waiting for the response.
Okay, I can be honest with you. After we got married, Shauna unfriended both of us on social media.
We won.
Well, no, I read a thing that said if your ex unfriends you on social media, you win. So I was like,
"That's a terrible."
I won, but it's not even about that. It's like I don't even care. It doesn't bother me.
I was just kidding. I was pressing a button.
But there have been a couple times when I've been discouraged with you in our marriage in the last 8-9 years that I'll say, I wonder what would happen if I would have married Shauna. Not be happy. I would be.
The fact that you even do that, I mean.
That's a joke.
I know, but I feel like any woman that's listening is like, oh my God, what's going to happen now?
No, that's a joke.
A little bit.
I don't really do that, but I mean, okay, maybe I have a couple times, but not like intentionally. I'm just saying, there ain't nothing there that I won't. I thought I wanted it.
Well, I think we've all been there. I mean, we've all been there. I mean, I say we all. I think most humans have been like, okay, and you at the moment in the present when you're in it, you're like, this is all I ever wanted, and then you get past it and realize that whatever was not.
You
right
get on the other
it.
side and you see that you would have been like in bondage.
Yeah,
and I can't be that.
So, I mean, you just talked about 2012, 2013. I mean, for both of us in this season, we experienced like some pretty huge losses between your granny and my dad. But in the right, but in the midst of that loss or right after, whatever, like in a short period of time, like what we're saying is that we met, and one of the biggest decision, or if not the biggest decision of our earthly life here, is meeting each other and getting married like right after. So I mean, there's a lot of like super super highs but super super lows.
I actually, in recording season 4, I had a different take on that.
Okay.
It was almost like I had a huge loss with my grandmother, my granny, who was my person, and then she was gone. And it was just like, she was in hospice for a couple of weeks, so I knew that it was coming. But I remember when she finally was gone, my first thought was, who's going to protect me now? Like, who's going to... Because she was all I had. And I don't mean she was all I had, but in my mind, at that moment, it was like, there's nobody else that loves me like my granny loves me. And I think you communicated that with your dad. Like, he was gone. And I don't want to try to figure it out.
Right.
But it was like, you were a gift to me that I maybe wouldn't have appreciated as much if I hadn't experienced a loss.
Oh, you've never said it like that, but I...
No, I was really doing the podcast helped me to process that. It's like, I would have never like thought that at the time, but just in hindsight and retrospect, and then really just going through the process of recording all these episodes, that was a shaky time for me, and it was also a shaky time for you. It was like, your world gets, I won't say shattered, but definitely shaken. Shook. All right, let's talk about feedback. Have you got any like significant feedback? I mean, I've got a couple comments that I could talk about.
I mean, I guess I share the part because this season was the first time that I really shared a lot about me, you know, and it's just been kind of neat.
You made the grand entrance.
Like, you don't think about that your closest friends don't know things, and then but yeah, I've had a lot of questions about, ironically, like about our marriage, honestly, and about us talking about two becoming one. Even in the latest episode, they're like, people should talk more about that, like, because it is hard, you know. That's the only comment I can like that comes to my mind. But maybe as you talk, I'll think of some more. What comments have you heard?
Well, I just went back through our messages and like specifically from some of our patrons. Linda Drake, who's one of our patrons, and they're sponsors of the podcast. Her husband.
I think I might say they're our biggest fans, and I'm here for it, and I really appreciate them. But anyway, what did Linda say?
I love them. I can't say enough about Linda and Brad Drake. But she just texted me on, I think it was season, I don't remember the episode, but I talked about giving you the ring that I brought for Karina.
Oh, yes. See?
She was mortified.
And most women are when they hear that. No, I have gotten several comments about that.
I was like,
actually.
Look, I didn't know, but I didn't do it, so it don't matter. So thank you. But yeah, she was like, you would never. And I was like, okay, if you want to be technical, I traded in on her ring, so she kind of got the same ring.
Yeah.
In kind of the same way. But probably the most significant thing about season 4 was we talked about somebody who was a dear friend of mine, Charlotte Guffin, and she actually sang at our wedding. Mm-hmm. And even as we were recording this, she had a situation where they thought she was having a stroke or something. They took her to the hospital. And she had a brain tumor. They did surgery. They said, we're going to do radiation and all the things. And sent her home. A few weeks later, she had another episode. They took her in and they said, she's got a tumor on her brainstem and then it spread all over her body and pretty much.
Well, okay, so to be like technical,
yeah, I don't remember.
This tumor on her brainstem was bleeding out, and there's nothing you can't surgically fix that. So it was just a matter of, you're waiting for someone to pass away in that because your body, it renders you. You can look it up.
It was terminal, basically.
but
it happened.
The
so
timeline
fast.
Was from the original diagnosis to her going to heaven. I think was like 6 weeks.
6 weeks, yeah, it was 6 weeks.
So, and she was not old. She was actually quite young. And actually that whole thing with Charlotte triggered so many emotions with me, with my mom and with my dad.
Yeah. And
her 4 kids that are in their, 20s, early 30s possibly. But anyway, around the same age. I literally, there were a couple of days there, and I don't want to make this about me because it wasn't, but I think it just triggered so many emotions, almost like PSTD or something, or PTSD. PTSD. But just like, because I know how that feels. I know how it feels to like feel like it's too soon. You're losing somebody. Like, I guess I was definitely like feeling. I felt what her children were feeling.
Yeah.
And anyway, it's just like what you said earlier. Like, I don't want to try to figure it out because there are no answers that make sense on this side of heaven. Like, you can't.
Well, here's how I always comfort myself when somebody dies. We're all going to die. That's why you got to have the hope. You got to, if you have Jesus, you have the hope, that you're good. No matter what, that you're going to be in a better place. You're going to be with the people that you love. You're going to be with Jesus. And one thing I know about Charlotte was that she loved Jesus. She was a worshiper. And if you were ever around Charlotte, she was going to take you to Jesus no matter what you're going through.
That's true.
And I feel like she was ready to go. Like, I don't feel like she was like mourning the fact that she was leaving other than, she wanted to make sure her kids were taken care of. But they're all adults. But it was just odd to me that we were recording this season and then that happened. But her funeral was probably the most beautiful funeral that I've ever been to.
Yeah, it was super neat.
I've never seen anything like that because she was part of the Gardendale First Baptist Church. She was like one of the lead singers, worshipers. And I met her through the Foundry. She also did worship at the Foundry. But they, instead of doing worship at her memorial service, they used her videos of her worshiping. And it was very powerful and it was very emotional. But at the last song that they did was her on the stage, a video of her with the choir and all things. And she was saying, I want to see heaven. And it broke me when I saw it. But it was in a beautiful way. Like, because now that's what she's seeing. And I know that and I believe that. It was just odd.
Well, I think you're saying it was odd because, I mean, we definitely highlighted several losses in this season.
Not just that. We went through coming to Gardendale. I talked about in the episode about the Kairos Cafe Gardendale, the Facebook push for me to come up here. Who was the leader of that? Was Charlotte Guffin.
Yeah.
She was the one that was leading that campaign, like to get Kairos and Gardendale. And I don't know. So in a way, I never would have met you if it hadn't been for my friendship with Charlotte. So that's neat. And
it's neat. And it's also, I mean, I thought this where you're going with this, but it wasn't. But like, it's also just like gives you on all like the hard things that we talked about and hard things we feel like we're in now.
Yeah.
Like a different perspective.
Absolutely.
Like the heaven perspective,
Yeah. Well, I've always comforted myself with that. Like, here's the bottom line. Because people are talking about healing. Is God healed? Is he not healed? Is he heal? Like, yes, he does, or he don't, or he does. But anyways, we're all going to die. Guess what? Even if you don't eat meat and you're a vegan and you go to CrossFit every day and you only eat vanilla collagen shakes for the rest of your life.
James,
No. I'm saying at some point, you're going to die.
I mean, I get that. And but see, I think where you and I differ a little bit is that, I mean, of course I agree with you. You're right. But you sound like a real, unempathetic hard ass. Because when I, feel all the things that I'm feeling, I know that her kids believe all those things too, but it doesn't take away from the pain of missing her on Earth.
Oh, I miss her on Earth.
I know, but not like our kids. No, I'm just saying, it's just, I feel like you have to, and I'm not saying you. I mean, I think we all have to, there's so many different ways to think about it, and a lot of the ways can give hope and whatever, but also I think I guess I just feel a need to, validate the feelings of those people closest to.
I think one of the biggest feedbacks I got from multiple people was just the impossibility of how you got to Gardendale all the way from Sweden, which is unthinkable.
Yeah.
To here at the same time that I was here.
Yeah.
And it was almost as much of an impossibility for me to be in Gardendale as it was you.
Right. I mean, especially since, for me anyway, that I'm, grew up in Florida, that Alabama.
It wasn't even on your radar.
No. Or, even my parents' radar before 2009.
It was Gardendale, just because I grew up in Phoenix City. I came to a birthday party my first year living in Birmingham in Gardendale at the old Civic Center. And I thought, oh, this is Phoenix City plus, but it's still small town. I don't have nothing to do with this.
Right.
So just the fact that I ever got interested in even a remote possibility that I would live in a small town again was phenomenal for me too. Mm-hmm. So, but that's a neat little thing.
It is. What do they call it? Or you call it destiny or serendipity?
Well, where Kairos Cafe in Gardendale is now is a Mexican place that we go to quite frequently.
Yes.
And it is so funny to be able to tell my kids, I met your mama standing right there.
That is crazy.
It is neat.
Yeah.
And then, Joey Moe, who worked with me at the Gardendale Kairos, and Kelsey Dodd, Kelsey Hatcher now. But they both worked for me there. And they were both single, didn't really have anything going on. I was single, didn't really have anything going on. And now, fast forward 7, 8, 9 years later, we all got the same age kids in one classroom.
Yeah.
Joey's son Tucker and Kelsey's daughter Raylan. Is it Raylan or Raylyn?
She says either one.
Okay. Are all in the same class with Royal.
Which is only 16 kids in that class.
So it's phenomenal. It's like, who would have thought all those years ago? And here we are.
That's neat.
That's good stuff.
We've officially adopted the small town life.
Oh, I love it. I love Gardendale. I love the community. I love the people. I love the Christmas parades. They're still small town stuff.
Yeah.
I love the fall festivals that we do, just the way the community gathers like they did back in the day.
Right.
And there's really not many places in America that you can get that anymore.
That's very true.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is. I agree.
And I love our mayor, Stan Hoagland.
Yeah, he is actually.
And he's
I've
good
told that
people.
story of him at one of the episodes.
Yeah.
I don't remember which one. Maybe you can say. But yeah, he's just very genuine and.
But he's also a very good leader, very good. He's making stuff happen in our city.
Yeah.
I just love it.
Salt of the earth.
So we've got a lot of feedback about our love story, if you want to call it that, however you want to say it. It didn't start off with a lot of romance.
Right.
With me.
Well.
It's just shooting you out a text, you want to go spend this gift card before it expires. People don't believe me when I say that. I've had 3 or 4 people that I know that have texted me and say, "Did you really? Is that really?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's really how it started." But
what was that? Were you just nervous or something?
I wasn't interested in a relationship.
Well,
I've been
you must have
burned.
been a little bit interested to even invite me out.
I was interested in you, but the way that a man like me from my background would be interested in a girl like you, it would have been like fantasy. It wouldn't have been like a reality. Like, we could have had a fling or something, but there's no way you're going there's no way you're going to marry somebody like me. So it was just, it was scary. But at the same time, I felt like Denise Nolan kept nagging me about you. And I don't know if I want to get her off my back or just prove to her that this wouldn't work anyways. But I was honestly just highly intrigued with the thought of it. And I thought, well, if I don't put forth any kind of crazy effort, if I just be myself, and if anything happens, we'll see what happens. And something happened. So it's pretty cool.
And that was you being yourself.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I said it on this season, but I've said it to you before. You were the first person besides my granny that I could ever fully be myself with.
You actually did say that. But I have to say, too, that on the front end of that, the time that we're talking about, that through season 4, you say all that like a guy like me would ever be a girl like you. I mean, hence our Uptown shirt we have on it was true. And I actually did get a lot of that even from friends. My mom trusted me and that was nice, but like friends just like, wow. I mean, it was a very, off the radar pick from my end, but I have to like, not necessarily what people expected from me. I don't think, but I will have to say, fast forward to today, I feel like I'm the one that got the deal.
Oh, babe. Why you say that?
Getting emotional now. Well, I mean, I know, like, you just, I don't know, I guess it's because of your background and just your granny or whatever, I don't know, but like, just you work really hard and you do things in the house. I mean, I know sometimes you say you feel like a house husband and you are a house husband. I mean, not really, but it's awesome. Because you do dishes, you do the grocery shopping, you do laundry.
I keep things going.
It's amazing, people. No, but just like, I mean, not only that, those are like task things, which I appreciate, but just like, I mean, the gift of endurance and pushing through and really what your granny said, which is true, which is that you're the most sincere. And you're that in our marriage too. Goodness. People, it is my time of month. I'm sorry.
Well, you are the gift to me. I mean, you always have been. And when I get annoyed with you, I have to take myself back to remind myself that was in my vows. That when I wrote my vows was that don't forget that this is a gift. She is a gift to you and you have to spend the rest of your life unwrapping the gift.
Yeah.
So.
It's good.
I didn't mean that in a sexual way, just... Just life. I mean, you helped me to enjoy life in a way that I never had before. And, I don't think I could without you because you experience life in a different kind of way. You are in the moment, especially with the kids. It's like always, I remember early on I was getting annoyed. Like, we ain't always got to be doing something with Lula. But we only have them for 18 years to and create those memories and build a family and build a life. And I know you say I do a lot of like task stuff, but you do all the people stuff because I'm not good at that. And I just thankful.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah.
Team Jones.
All right. Well, I had some comments from people saying that they enjoyed hearing that the beginning and even when we got engaged that we didn't have a lot of hype, that it was more of just a calm thing where we just knew.
Calm delight. That's how you defined it.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that's the biblical definition of joy. you got some feedback from one of your friends, Brooke. You want to talk about that? She said she identified with that because most people did not identify with that.
Yeah, my friend Brooke said that she definitely felt that when she met her husband too, because she had gone through some bad relationships and was like done and didn't want to date anybody, and of course
was over all the hype and all the things.
Was over all the hype and just kind of like that feeling, that crazy in love feeling that most of us have experienced. I mean, not necessarily with your husband or wife, but at some point in your life.
Yeah.
And that is such an adrenaline rush, But she was like, but I had just done that and it just didn't end well, so I wasn't interested.
Sometimes it does. I shouldn't say it never does.
Yeah.
But for the most part, that's usually like doing crack.
Right. But she had said, basically she had told him that and said but he, I guess, stood the test of time and just like kept plugging along until there was some, you felt some security, or she felt some security there, some safety, some consistency.
Well, he knew what he wanted and he believed it was her. And his background was very similar to my background. And she come from more like you, uptown girl kind of.
Yeah.
Good girl.
living in her uptown world. Yeah. Yes.
So I thought that was neat, the connection with that. One thing I like that I've gotten from some of our patrons is that joyful anticipation, like the phrase that we coined, joyful anticipation, is now becoming like a coined phrase for them. And I love that. It's right up there with reposition yourself.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You'd have to listen for railroad to know about the reposition yourself. But any other thoughts before we close out? I mean, we've got a lot of bingers this season. I think that's neat. Like people that have picked up on the podcast and they start listening to it and then they say they finished all 4 seasons.
Yeah.
Like in 2 weeks.
I want to give a shout out actually to one of those bingers, Suzanne Maynor, who is a recent friend of mine that we met in a business networking group.
Who is Suzanne?
Suzanne is the one that's in my BNI chapter, and she's been listening and has literally...
Oh, the Enneagram 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
yes.
if you don't know what that is, I'm an Enneagram 1, she's Enneagram 1.
And she's hilarious because she's just like, I am James and James is me. I'm the female version. Everything he says, I'm like, yeah. She's like, even down to the point of in season 1, how you're like, does that make sense? Like, she's like, I say that all the time.
I had to make myself stop saying, does that make sense?
But just being able to relate to, your story, I guess. And it's just been neat hearing that and being able to connect with someone and, begin a friendship with someone who is like you. And I think that's what has connected her to me, is that her feeling a kindred spirit with you.
That's neat stuff.
Yeah.
And then most recently, we got some feedback from someone in California who was listening to our podcast that found it because I remember if it was boyfriend or husband.
Her fiance.
Got involved in something and was actually arrested and was in county jail. And just that.
Is heading to prison soon.
Yeah, but she was saying that it was helping her understand, and she had a lot of questions that we're going to answer or try to lead her to somebody that can help get the answers. But just stuff like that is just neat for me.
Yeah.
And speaking of bingers, our friend Mike Miller, he sent me I forget which app he used because we're on just about all the apps now for podcasts, but the Straight Outta Prison podcast was his most listened to podcast of 2021. And cool. He listens to podcasts, so I thought that's neat. That's a blessing.
That's neat.
But then, and finally, I got a message from Jonathan, who's one of our patrons and also a friend of mine. He said he loved the way that season 4 ended. He said that he loved the way that season 4 ended because he's turning 40 this year, and it gives him some hope, because some people get to that 40 mark and they get depressed. And I was very depressed, but I didn't have a wife or a kid or anything to go on. So it was ironic that by the time I turned 41, everything I ever wanted, I was in possession of it.
Yeah.
So those are neat little just feedbacks. So before we close it up, any final thoughts about season 4? It started out, you were living in Sweden, I was dating Shauna. Mm-hmm. Then
I don't know. I'd maybe feel just like I want to encourage people that, anything can happen. And like someone gave us advice a couple years back
Talking about Pastor Bill?
Yeah, a mentor of yours when we were really struggling, like, okay, what are we going to do next? Before we started Team Jones.
Yeah, we were in a rough season.
And he said, you know what? It's like things can change in an instant. Like, take heart. Don't lose hope. Like, because things can change in an instant. And that you just never know where the next, thing is going to come through or connection is going to be made or whatever that might change the entire trajectory of the rest of your life, no matter how old you are.
Beautiful stuff.
Or young you are.
All right, well, that segues us into closing out this episode. I just want to say that it's been a little over a year. We started in November of 2020, second Tuesday. It's supposed to be the first Tuesday, but that was election day. I thought that's not a good day to launch a podcast.
Definitely not.
Especially with that election. Lord have mercy.
Yeah.
But we've taped over 67 episodes. You realize that's 67 hours?
That we've sat down here in this basement and had conversation.
Crazy to think about that.
That's a lot of us talking to each other.
I know. We've had 30,000 plus downloads. I think it's almost on all three platforms. It's closer to 35,000.
Yeah.
We're on 6 continents. And we have 3 podcast platforms.
It's neat.
So, and the best is yet to come.
Yeah, it's exciting.
So stay tuned for season 5. Thank you for your support. Thank you for encouraging us to keep going even when we didn't know, what this was going to look like. And we appreciate you guys more than you know, and you really are and really have become part of our story.
Absolutely. I could not have said it better.
Thank you, baby.
All right. Thanks, guys.
We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the podcast.
Written and produced by the Team Jones Company.
Yours truly, James and Haley Jones. If you like what you've heard, you can subscribe to all of our podcasts on Apple, Google, Amazon Music, Spotify, iHeart, or really just about anywhere you enjoy listening to podcasts.
Most of you know about the Straight Outta Prison podcast, and we want you to know we've added 2 new platforms.
The For Real Reel, where we talk about real life, things you would never see on a highlight reel.
Things that might make you blush and might make you question some things that you never thought about. Unpack the week's hot button issues, current events.
Along with the weekly Jamesism and Haleyism. Now you have to tune in to find out what that means.
Tune in to find out what that means.
And Narrowing the Gap, where I'm sharing with Haley the lessons I learned in getting from where I was to where I was supposed to be.
Narrowing the Gap is a teaching companion to the Straight Outta Prison podcast, where he really digs into some of the profound lessons that he learned and had to walk out in his journey in prison and coming out of prison.
Or download the Patreon app and you can get all of our content early and ad-free. Straight Outta Prison podcast, the For Real Reel, and Narrowing the Gap.
Listen on Apple, Google, Amazon Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more.
Other ways you can support us is to like and share the episodes of the podcast, leave us a rating and a review,
and support our sponsors. They help us provide this platform for free.
Thank you guys for listening to the podcast.
And again, thank you guys for being a part of our story.
Anything out of these videos, please hit the like button, the subscribe. If you never want to miss a recipe or anything I do, hit the little bell and you'll get notifications.